We already have a key hook, but we needed a place by the front door to put things like wallets, sunglasses, and my wife's purse. Other than fitting perfectly in this little space, the design criteria were at least 2 drawers up top and a larger cabinet below. I settled on about 36 inches tall, 16 inches wide, and about 10 or 12 inches deep. Mid-century, Scandinavian, Danish modern, and other minimalist design concepts are definitely in vogue these days, and for good reason. There's just something sophisticated and beautiful in those minimalist designs. They're often paired with a dark, rich hardwood like teak or walnut, and they have subtle details that just lend themselves well to a handcrafted piece of furniture. I've been doing quite a bit of research on it lately, trying to figure out which elements of the design I wanted to incorporate into this cabinet. And then I went over to Sketchup to play around a little bit. I'm not trying to map out any of my joinery details or make a cut list or anything. Basically just playing around with boxes so that I can get an idea of the proportions and overall design. For example, here I am putting some pretty generic legs on the bottom of the cabinet, knowing that I probably won't finalize the design for the legs until I'm halfway through the build. But I just want to get an overall idea for how it feels. This first version is just kind of a warm-up, just to see how it looks as a simple box. Maybe I'll just let the details of the joinery and the beautiful hardwoods speak for themselves on a minimal design. But it's kind of boring, so I kept going. The next idea I had was to break up the top section with drawers and the bottom cabinet into 2 separate boxes. I imagined I would kind of float the top cabinet over the bottom section, kind of like a floating tabletop, and then choose a leg design that complemented that detail. But it was a little too static, and the drawer section didn't really need to be that big, so I figured I would vary the proportions a little bit and make the 2 drawers in the top a little skinnier and the bottom cabinet larger. My wife looked at it and immediately said, "Hey, it's a robot," so I moved on. A lot of full-size cabinets have this design where the top is not quite as deep as the bottom, so I thought I might try that. But the first thing I saw when I looked at it was a mechanic's tool chest. Then this idea popped in my head from something I'd seen in a magazine once. It was these freestanding shelf units, and when I looked it up, they were designed by a guy named Arne Vodder. I couldn't find a ton of information about him other than this very short Wikipedia article, but I think his designs are gorgeous. So back to the drawing board, and my mechanic's tool chest became something of a little homage to old Arnie. A program like Sketchup is awesome because you can really visualize a project in 3D before you start. But a low-tech approach to design has its benefits too. This simple hand drawing is quick, easy to read, and I actually feel like it gives me more freedom when it comes to letting the design evolve organically. And because I'm going to build the boxes first and finish the design for the legs later, this is all I need to get started. One of the boards had a rather large knot that I couldn't really avoid, but it only showed on one side and you could barely see it on the other. So I figured I would just patch it with a wooden plug and some epoxy. This will be the outside of the cabinet. I didn't have any proper epoxy dye, but the hole was pretty small on the visible side. So I just used some walnut sawdust and a couple tiny drops of this model paint to darken it. I like to use packing tape as a dam for the epoxy. Once the epoxy had cured, I just used my biggest Forstner bit to cut out a hole for a plug where the knot was. Then I just drew a circle and cut it out on my bandsaw. Lastly, I snuck up to my pencil line on my oscillating spindle sander until it fit just right. I waited on these last few passes through the thickness planer until after I had plugged that knot hole. Lots of wood chips when I'm planing down slabs. That little old grizzly joiner that I keep under my miter saw bench needs a little TLC before it'll be up and running. But honestly, I keep dragging my feet because I'm not sure I really even need it. I really only needed to joint one edge of each board so it was true enough to run over my table saw fence. Then I trimmed a little off both sides to make sure they were completely straight. Whenever I start doing crosscuts, the first cut I make is just to clean up the edge of the board. Then I pull out my square to make sure my saw is behaving. Then I set my stops and cut everything to its final length. This is what happens behind my miter saw when the dust collector gets full. So, as you probably guessed, this will have to be continued in the next video, but join me next time for part 2. See you later.